Sting, $1,000, maybe $2,500 on the high end. That's what it costs to shoot down a Russian drone that costs 10 times more. A Shahed costs somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 to build and fly into Ukrainian territory. The Patriot interceptor missile that kills it costs over $1 million. Ukraine was doing that math every single night of 2022 and 2023, and the math was catastrophic. Sting is the answer to that math problem. You strap on VR goggles, you see what the drone sees: thermal camera, night vision, real-time feed. The drone climbs to 7 kilometers, pushes past 300 kilometers an hour, and chases down whatever's in the air. When it gets close enough, it either rams the target directly or detonates a 500-gram warhead next to it. The target comes down, the Sting does not come back, but it cost $1,000. What most people miss, in the first months of deployment, Sting interceptors proved effective at the 80 to 90% rate. That number matters because it's not just about one drone kill, it's about where you place the operator. A single soldier with a portable ground station and a backpack of Stings can plug a gap in air defense coverage that would otherwise require a full anti-aircraft battery worth tens of millions of dollars. Russia spends $50,000, Ukraine spends $2,000. Russia loses the drone anyway. That's not a weapons story, that's an accounting story, and Ukraine is winning it. F-7 Litav, built by FD Drones. Development started autumn 2024, codified summer 2025, delivered to troops autumn 2025. Official price on the Brave One market platform, 83,000 hryvnias. That timeline matters, 14 months from concept to frontline delivery, in a war. Top speed, 300 to 350 kilometers an hour. Ceiling, 9.5 kilometers. Tactical radius, up to 60 kilometers in practice, 36 kilometers declared. 2 cameras on board, day and thermal. Navigation, inertial system, no GPS required. That last part is the point. Every Russian EW system on the front is built to kill GPS-dependent drones. Litav operates without GPS entirely. You jam it and nothing happens. It hunts Shaheds, Duranis, Gerberas, reconnaissance drones, anything Russia flies at Ukrainian cities and positions. Here's what most people miss. Spring 2026, 2 upgrades shipped simultaneously. First, automatic last-mile guidance. The operator spots the target, hits the intercept button, and the drone takes over. AI locks the target at 2 kilometers out and closes the distance alone. The operator's hands are off the controls at the most critical moment, which means EW interference in the final approach no longer matters. Second, remote launch. Operators can destroy aerial targets while sitting hundreds of kilometers from the launch station. The drone flies the mission, the human watches from safety. The 1020th Anti-Aircraft Artillery Regiment is running these operationally. They've used Litav against the newest Shahed modifications, the ones Russia equipped with air-to-air R-60 missiles specifically to kill Ukrainian aircraft and tactical aircraft. Ukraine built a drone interceptor to protect its aircraft from a drone that was modified to shoot down aircraft. That's the level of iteration happening in this war. P-1 Sun, built by Skyfall, around $1,000 for the defense forces, 90% Ukrainian components. The only foreign part is the optics. The soldiers call it something else. In Ukrainian, P-1 Sun sounds almost identical to the word for male genitalia, and the nickname Pisyun stuck from day one. Pilots, operators, commanders, everyone uses it. Official designation in briefings, P-1 Sun. Unofficial designation everywhere else, Pisyun. This is not relevant to its combat effectiveness. It is, however, the most Ukrainian detail in this entire series. A $1,000 drone killer named after male anatomy, destroying Russian aircraft over the front lines every night. Speed, over 300 kilometers an hour in standard configuration. Upgraded versions hit 450 kilometers an hour, fast enough to chase down jet-propelled Shaheds. ceiling 9.5 kilometers, range 15 to 23 kilometers, flight time 15 to 17 minutes, warhead up to 800 grams, detonated by kinetic impact or remote command. The airframe is 3D printed, modular construction. You repair it in the field. You change the geometry for new sensor types without rebuilding the platform. 90% of components are Ukrainian. Supply chain disruption from sanctions or export restrictions doesn't ground this drone. What most people miss, spring 2026, Ukraine started launching P-1 Sun from AN-28 aircraft. Drone holders integrated directly on each wing. The AN-28 becomes an airborne carrier. It climbs above the threat altitude, releases the interceptors, and the P-1 Suns hunt from above. You turned a light transport aircraft into an aerial drone hunting platform for a fraction of the cost of any dedicated interceptor system. By spring 2026, the P-1 Sun family had destroyed more than 3,000 Russian aerial targets. Interception effectiveness 80 to 100%, depending on operator skill and weather conditions. 3,000 targets, $1,000 each. That's $3 million of Ukrainian expenditure to destroy targets worth multiples of that. The Gulf states noticed, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all actively evaluating P-1 Sun as their primary defense against Iranian kamikaze drones threatening their critical infrastructure. Ukraine built a $1,000 drone. The world is trying to buy it. Octopus, built by TAF Industries, produced in Ukraine and at facilities in the United Kingdom. The name fits. An octopus doesn't chase prey in a straight line. It cuts off angles, adapts. The drone works the same way. Octopus 100 modification, top speed over 300 kilometers per hour, operating altitude up to 4,500 meters, tactical radius up to 30 kilometers, day and night cameras for around-the-clock operation. Two systems make Octopus different from a fast FPV with a warhead. First, AI tracking. Machine vision locks the target and tracks it autonomously through the final intercept phase. The operator designates, the drone executes. Even if the operator loses signal, the intercept continues. Second, autopilot-based EW resistance. When jamming kills the control link, the autopilot holds the intercept trajectory. The drone doesn't fall, it doesn't wander, it keeps going. What most people miss, Octopus costs less than 10% of what a Shahed costs to produce. Ukraine is receiving these in multi-thousand unit batches. When you receive interceptors in batches of thousands, and each one costs a tenth of what it kills, you are no longer playing defense. You are running an economy of scale that the attacker cannot sustain. Russia fires a Shahed. It costs $40,000 and 6 months of production time in an Iranian-supplied supply chain. Ukraine fires an Octopus. It costs $4,000 and was assembled last week. Do that 10,000 times and tell me who runs out first. Raybird 3. Built by Skaton, in Ukrainian service since 2016. Autumn 2022, Kherson counteroffensive. Ukrainian forces are moving fast through territory Russia has held for months. For that to work without catastrophic casualties, someone needs continuous eyes on Russian withdrawal routes, ambush positions, reinforcement columns, eyes that don't need to rotate back to base every 2 hours. 24 hours of continuous flight, that's the Raybird answer. 150 kilometers of communications range, speed between 60 and 140 kilometers per hour, slow when you need detail over a target, faster when you need to reposition across the sector. Catapult launch from small field positions, no runway required. You're the battery commander. You have 24 hours of eyes over that river crossing. You watch the pattern across 2 full days, the vehicle that wasn't there yesterday, the new camouflage netting going up, the foot traffic that means a command post relocated overnight. Then you pass coordinates, artillery fires, Raybird watches the shell land. You call the adjustment, fire again, confirm the hit. What most people miss in a war where artillery is the primary casualty mechanism on both sides, the first shot is expensive because it's often wrong. Raybird makes the second shot cheaper by making the first shot informed. That efficiency compounds across thousands of fire missions over a campaign. 24 hours in the air, eyes that don't blink, that's the Raybird value. PD-2. Built by Spec Systems, launched 2020. June 2022, Ukraine's artillery is burning through ammunition faster than the West can ship it. Every misfire, every shell that lands 200 meters from the target, every fire mission that requires 4 corrections before the hit. That's money, that's time, that's windows closing while the enemy moves. The problem isn't firepower, the problem is eyes. PD-2 is the answer a brigade commander actually reaches for. Vertical takeoff and landing, no runway, no catapult. You set it down in a field, it lifts off, flies the sector, comes back. 8 to 10 kilogram payload, day camera, thermal, communications relay, or light strike module. You configure it before launch based on what the mission needs. Flight time up to 8 hours, communications range up to 180 kilometers, fully autonomous waypoint navigation, encrypted channels, EW resistant. What most people miss in a resource war, consistency is a combat multiplier nobody talks about. A system that delivers on 100 sorties is worth more than a system that's exceptional 3 times and dark on the 4th. Ukrainian brigade commanders built their entire reconnaissance cycles around PD-2 because it shows up every time. You plan the operation around that certainty. You don't hedge. You don't run a backup. You build the fire plan knowing PD-2 will be in the air when the artillery needs the correction. Boring, maybe, but in June 2022, when every shell counted and every miss cost something Ukraine couldn't afford, boring and reliable was the most valuable thing in the inventory. UJ-22 and UJ-23. Multi-role fixed wing, built by Ukrajet, first shown publicly at the Arms and Security Exhibition in 2021. Up to 800 kilometers of range, speed 120 to 160 kilometers per hour, takes off from a runway, carries up to 20 kilograms on a drop release, including 82mm mortar rounds adapted as unguided bombs against armor, fortifications, and troop concentrations. February 28, 2023, a UJ-22 is found near Gubastovo, Moscow Oblast, 460 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, approximately 100 kilometers from Moscow. Russian authorities say it was shot down. Ukraine says nothing. The wreckage speaks for itself. What most people miss, that drone did not need to destroy a target to win something. The political and psychological effect of Ukrainian hardware landing 100 kilometers from the Kremlin created domestic pressure that no military briefing could manufacture. Citizens in Moscow suburbs start asking questions. Confidence in air defense erodes. The sense that the war is happening somewhere far away, somewhere manageable, breaks. UJ-22 didn't land near Moscow by accident. It landed near Moscow because it could. UJ-23 Topaz, jet-powered variant from the same family, operates day and night, all weather, in active electronic warfare environments. Both platforms actively deployed throughout the invasion. The sea. Nobody predicted this. In February 2022, Ukraine had no operational surface navy. Russia had the Black Sea Fleet, a force built over decades, anchored in Sevastopol, controlling access to Crimean ports and the logistics that kept the peninsula running, unchallengeable by any conventional measure. Ukraine built a drone, Magiura V5, unmanned surface vessel, low hull profile, almost invisible on radar, range 800 kilometers, speed up to 75 kilometers per hour, warhead equivalent 200 to 300 kilograms, enough to mission kill a frigate. You navigate it by GPS, inertial sensors, and optical observation. It runs complex approach routes around shipping buoys, through tidal currents, along coastlines. The operator keeps control until the final approach. It has attacked Russian warships, Black Sea Fleet vessels, Crimean port infrastructure. It operates solo and in coordinated groups. Some drones draw defensive fire, others use the gap that opens. Magiura V7 is the evolution, speed above 80 km per hour, same 800 plus kilometer range, modular warhead configurable for different ship classes, better EW resistance, faster mission turnaround because the crew swaps modules instead of rebuilding hardware. What most people miss, Russia had to relocate warships away from Sevastopol, had to rethink logistics into Crimea, had to treat what was supposed to be safe rear territory as a contested zone requiring active defense. The Black Sea Fleet, the symbol of Russian naval dominance in the region, retreated from its own home port. A country with no navy did that, with a drone that cost a fraction of what it threatened. That's not a technology story. That's what happens when you have no choice and you build one anyway. The fleet that retreated from Sevastopol wasn't beaten by a navy. It was beaten by engineers in Kiev who decided the math could work differently. It did. 2 parts, 20 drones, 1 war that keeps rewriting the rules. If this changed how you think about modern warfare, the like button is right there, and part 3 is already in production.